What's going on, guys? Today in this video, we're going to be talking about the Peacemaker Season 2 premiere, just my overall thoughts on it, what I want to see for the rest of this season, and also talk about the way that they merged this brand new season into the DCU, because of course this first season took place in the DCEU. But listen, before I jump into things, please be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and also hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around. But yeah, Peacemaker, baby, we are so back. I absolutely loved Peacemaker Season 1, to say the least. I think it's one of the best comic book show seasons ever. I think that pretty much goes without saying. For me, it's probably like second or third. It's somewhere in the top 4 because I look at the Penguin Season 1, and then I also look at those 2 seasons of Loki, which I really enjoyed. Haven't really seen Daredevil or any of those other shows, but from, again, what I've seen, it's really up there. And, again, I love comic book stuff, so I just absolutely ate it up. I'm a huge James Gunn fan, and I feel like what it did so well is that while I did find the story relatively interesting, I don't think it's its strongest suit. I think what it does so well is diving into the characters of the show, and shows that are character driven can just be so awesome sometimes, especially because they're the main catalyst. There are vehicles for this story that we're going on here. And of course, in Peacemaker Season 1, there are the 2 parallel stories where one's like the alien invasion, basically just doing Marvel's Secret Invasion storyline, and the other one is dealing with Peacemaker's dad and, you know, his clan, I guess you could say, the White Dragon. And in preparation for Peacemaker Season 2, I just rewatched Peacemaker Season 1. That's actually why I'm a bit late on this video, because I wasn't even able to watch Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1 until like Friday night, because I was a bit behind. I tried to watch The Suicide Squad, which I just did, which is actually like James Gunn's second best movie in my opinion. I still love it to death. Rewatched Season 1, and then I finally watched Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1. Which now takes place in the DCU, so I definitely want to talk about that. But yeah, I'm going to be going to spoilers here, especially because it's just one episode, and you know, it's been like 2 days, just 45 minutes of your time, so if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but maybe come back to this video. But yeah, we're in the DCU now. I have to just start off with that, and one thing I gotta say is I didn't really know how they were gonna merge this. There's all this talk where James Gunn's in interviews, and it feels like he's playing coy a bit, and he's like, "Oh, you guys will see how it's merged," and I think that they do a good enough job, or a pretty good job, I don't want to make it sound like it's the bare minimum, at transferring the show into the DCU in a way that I found pretty interesting, because you start the episode, and there's a Season 1 recap, and in this intro, in this like recap, it's actually pretty lengthy, it's probably like 3 or 4 minutes long. It says, previously in the DCU, and I feel like what I got from this is that whatever's being shown in this recap is canon, and whatever isn't is not canon, because there's so many references to like Batman and Green Arrow. Again, I just watched this whole season, so it's very fresh on my mind. And even like Batmite, bunch of other heroes, so I think it makes sense to like exclude those. But they showed the dad storyline. They are very heavy on pushing the dad storyline, especially because they're going to be going over that in the second season, which we'll get to in a second. It's pretty obvious like where they're going with that. I don't know the story, but still, you know, they're diving into the brother Keith again, which we'll talk about in a second. But it seems like they really laid off the alien storyline, which I'm not really sure why, but maybe just because that just has a lot more grander implications on the DCU. The fact that there was this secret event, that secret invasion type of event that did take place. So I understand them not leaning into it, but the thing I got from it is whatever that's in this little recap is canon, and whatever isn't in the recap isn't. That's, again, my own personal take on it. But one thing I do want to mention is that they did change things in this intro. Some insane things, first of all. I gotta start off with one thing. The Justice League. That was the biggest issue. Like, yes, there were references to Batman and this and that, right? But maybe it was a bit too early in the DCU to really start heavily referencing those characters. Like, sure, Batman technically did show up in Creature Commandos. There are references to, like, Arkham and Gotham in Superman, but I still think it does make sense that, oh, you know, we're talking about Batman's personality, but has anyone ever really met him? We don't know what he's going to be like. But the Justice Gang shows up now. And one thing that I found really interesting, though, besides that, because we're going to get into that in a second, is that there is a scene, because, again, I just rewatched this finale, because I just rewatched the show. Adebayo's on the phone with Wall, and she's like, hey, why don't you just call up the Justice League in Season 1? But in the recap, they show her calling, but right as she says Justice, it cuts away the video and replaces the audio with gang. So they probably just like had her record like a quick, you know, line in ADR or whatever, put it in there. So it's like she called Waller to call the Justice Gang, so we're retconning that. Then obviously we show Superman, Supergirl, Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl all there. And then instead of having Aquaman and Barry, the Flash, now we have Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. And we almost like replace the joke, which I think is important for the future of the DCU, the joke about Aquaman and his relationship with fish. We sort of replace that with this Green Lantern thing, and like how like Peacemaker like threw up on his carpet or whatever, I don't know. But they replaced that joke there to kind of establish this like beef, I guess you could say, between them, or like this disdain for each other, I guess you could say. But they basically retcon those things. The DCU is no more, especially DCEU, because Jason Momoa is going to be playing Lobo. Michael Rooker is also going to be in Peacemaker Season 2, and he's in the Suicide Squad. So I guess that for now on, it's just kind of going to be one of these things where you can watch Peacemaker Season 1. It's going to be almost like this dream scenario of Peacemaker Season 2, but what I think is really important, you got to keep in mind, I'm a guy, honestly, that it does bother me when, like, canon is kind of, like, being messed with. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, it does bother me a bit that, like, we couldn't have just had the Justice Gang in Season 1, like, naturally, because there was all these plans changing. So in the back of my head, it's like my eyes still twitching a little bit, but one thing I've got to say is that going into Peacemaker Season 2, I think the things that do matter when it comes to canon and all this other stuff is really just the way that we got to know our characters. It's going to be the conversations that we got to watch them have in Season 1. It's going to be all the interactions, the heart-to-heart moments. Those are the things that are going to stick, and those are what's really most important. The Justice League showing up versus the Justice Gang showing up, how much does that really matter? Like, yes, obviously it does matter because, Henry Cavill's Superman is not going to be in the DCU. So they retcon it. You kind of just have to accept that. And let's just be realistic here, right? Everyone's so on their heels about, oh my god, guys, oh no, how are they going to transfer Peacemaker Season 1 into the DCU? How are we going to do this? Guys, the only reason everyone cares so much right now is because of the fact that we're still in this transitional phase. I promise you, once we get 2 to 3 to 4 more DCU projects, no one's going to be worried about, oh my god, remember back in Peacemaker Season 2 when they had to retcon all this stuff? It's fine. It's really fine. If I look back to the beginning of the MCU, there wasn't really like retconning necessarily, but The Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk does not feel like an MCU movie because they're Universal owned the rights, I'm pretty sure. Edward Norton was also the Hulk, so they completely recast this character. And yeah, it's the same character, it's still Bruce Banner, but it's just the point that as time goes on, people will care less and less, and it won't become such this heavy topic of, oh my god, James Gunn is having some creative out where he can kind of just mess around with things and nobody cares. It's just the fact that all the attention is on it right now, so of course it's going to be a bit awkward, and even I can admit that, but I honestly think they did the best job they could have. I think the only thing, and listen, I don't think that you should ever replace art or go back and edit it, but I think the only other thing they could have done, which probably would have took a lot of work, is literally going back and editing Season 1 and changing the way that it is on HBO Max. But I'm going to be honest, I actually don't like that. I think that would have been too much. I think that's almost disrespectful even to the fact that Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller, I mean, I don't really have any respect for him, but the fact that they showed up, they did a cameo. That's how Season 1 is. You can't go back and change a show. So I like the fact that they just retconned it. They make it very clear in the beginning what's going on, and then we're moving on. And speaking of moving on, because we'll talk about that episode, I think Peacemaker Season 2 is off to a great start. Is it the greatest intro episode I've ever seen? No. But I think it just does such a great job at separating itself, honestly, from the DCEU, because I was rewatching Peacemaker Season 1, and I'm just thinking, damn, this just feels like the DCEU. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I just watched the Suicide Squad. Maybe it's because the context in my brain is saying, this does take place in the DCEU. But it does have this DCEU feel. And I was afraid that as we go to the DCU, especially because we just watched Superman, it's super wholesome and all that. Creature Commandos is a bit off the walls, but I was afraid that it was going to get maybe cleansed a bit. But Jesus Christ, Peacemaker Season 2 is as Peacemaker as it gets. It's pretty crazy, especially this one sequence in the middle, but let me just start off by saying this. It's very clear that our characters are all in the worst positions that they've ever been in. Peacemaker, his arc is clearly affecting him in this second season because he's still Peacemaker. He's still crazy. He still says wild things, but not to the same degree that he did in Season 1, Episode 1. It's clear that he's grown up a bit, but he still is the wacky, crazy person that kind of has, like, no filter, but it feels like his filter's been reduced a little bit to where at least he's a bit more respectful, okay? Yeah, sure, he'll say out-of-pocket things, but at least he's not, like, making fun of his friends, because now he actually has people that he cares about and that care about him, but everyone's kind of doing their own thing. It's clear that Harcourt is kind of on, like, this destructive path where she doesn't really know, like, where her life is going. She lost her job, and it's so clear that her job is so important to her. Adebayo is trying to figure out her own thing, especially after she basically threw her own mother under the bus. Justifiably so, but it's just the point there. Economos, same thing. He got his job back, but it doesn't seem like he's very happy. And everyone else is kind of just, again, doing their own thing. And this is a family, right? This is the 11th Street kids. It feels like they all really do need each other. And I'm sure that in, like, the next episode, like Season 2, Episode 2, or maybe 3, they'll kind of, come back together, or there'll be some type of maybe argument or conflict, but they'll still just start working together again. But I like the fact that they're all at their lowest points right now, because it's only up from here. Or at least, hopefully, it's only up from here. But another thing that I gotta mention, the pocket dimension. James Gunn just has such a keen eye for, like, looking at little details, because in that first season, the pocket dimension was sort of like a thing that was, I guess, just used as a tool, where, like, Robert Patrick, his dad, would go in there, he made his helmets there, but I like the fact that that small detail from Season 1, it wasn't the smallest detail, it was used a little bit, a good amount, it wasn't, like, super forgettable. We're tying them to Superman, because that was also an alternate dimension. Now we're going into the multiverse thing in a way. Do I like that? I feel like a big problem for superhero franchises, aka the MCU, has been the multiverse. Now we're going into the multiverse with Peacemaker Season 2, because of the fact that Peacemaker sees this other life where his dad and his brother both love him and are both alive, and also Harcourt is with him. Maybe it's his ex, I believe they say in that show, but he goes in there and he kills his own self from another universe. Is he going to replace him? I don't know what implications this has, but one thing I do want to make clear before I dive into some of the other details is that I don't think the DCU is really going to go the multiverse route. I think that more so what it's just trying to do is show Chris's trauma and have him try to kind of get over this and see what his alternate life could have been, because he's looking at this like, out of all the universes, all the infinite universes, I'm in the worst one. Then he gets to see how the grass could be possibly greener on the other side by literally seeing an alternate version of himself with what his family could have been. But instead, he's in, like, again, the worst possible scenario when it comes to his family life. So I think it's going to play out really interesting, in a really interesting way, I should say. And I don't think the DCU is going to do any multiverse stuff from here on out. I think they're just going to, like, maybe close it off, like, oh no, the universes are done now at the end of the season. I don't really know where it's going to go, though, honestly, but we do have Frank Grillo playing Rick Flag Sr., who's going to be hunting down Peacemaker because he killed his son. I like the fact that, again, we're taking in some stuff from the DCEU, like how Rick Flag obviously was killed in the Suicide Squad, which is in another franchise, I guess you could say, or another universe, again, the DCEU, and we're bringing that into here because I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And I just feel like this was just a very fun first episode. It was pretty deep, it was pretty somber, but still has little quips. And I've got to say, stylistically, I do think, first of all, you do feel like a slight budget upgrade, maybe. I feel like you do feel that. But besides that, it does feel different than Season 1. I will admit that. It does have a bit of a cleaner look, which I like. And it does feel a bit more fantastical and whimsical, and like we're trying to build this world out immediately on the first, in the first episode, and I really did enjoy that, and I feel like we're really in for a banger season. Again, it's not like the craziest episode ever. I mean, we do get to see Peacemaker kill an alternate version of himself, so I'm very excited to see what the implications of that are, but the Justice Gang are in here, of course, and we kind of get to see how he's just being rejected by everyone around him, and I found that just so interesting. And I also like the ties to the Justice Gang. I like the fact that they're in here because, honestly, it does help my brain kind of understand, hey, we're in the DCU now, we're not in the DCEU. I think having that scene with them kind of helped, recontextualize and kind of rewire my brain to be in a new mode where I'm like, yes, this takes place in the same universe as Superman. They name drop Lex Luthor in this. I think that I completely understand now and that my brain is kind of on board. Maybe it'll take another episode or two to really lock that in, but again, years down the line when we're 10 DCU projects in, I don't think anyone's going to care about this whole canon thing. Like, you could still watch Peacemaker Season 1, and yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. But yeah, I just wanted to get all my thoughts out there. I really enjoyed this first episode. I thought it was awesome, and I'm really excited to see where things go forward. I want to see how they unpack all these characters' trauma. I want to see how they kind of come together to be the 11th Street kids again, if they do. And also, the multiverse, man. Where are we going with this? Who are we going to see potentially? And yeah, I think this is going to be awesome. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 1. And I will see you in the next video.